He continues to be actively involved. Okay. Oh yeah, so thank you. See, certain details. So Dr. Rao, why don't you come and please come to the stage, and then once I finish, Ravi, please come to the stage. So Ravinder continues to be actively involved as CXO coach. He's on the party board. You cannot see. Okay, then Amit Mishra is the lead strategist at Toyota, and he's currently leads strategic initiatives at Toyota, which includes startup, business relations, ISP marketplace, and higher education. So that's interesting. We should talk about that. Toyota, the largest AI infrastructure company in India, owns 60% of AI infrastructure of the country. 20 plus US across reputed companies like Nokia, Jio, Samsung, and Entrepreneur in the past. We are enabled market entry to global startups and work in training national and several state startup policies. Amit has also invested in many startups and angel investor. He closely works with the organization data center ecosystem, AI companies on their GTM strategy. He is an alumnus of Harvard Business School, also part of governing board of Harvard Business School alumni club in India. The last part of the race for this panel, Madhu with you, is the managing director of MJ Group of Companies. Sorry, all those what your bio will be. He is an entrepreneur, second generation businessman, who is currently the managing director of MJ. A group dynamic entrepreneur and business leader has got distinctive path across the multi-sector business landscape, with business establishment in 4 countries and 4 states within India. He leads diversified portfolio that encompasses electropipers and MJ Advanced Materials, J. Bharat Gas Agency, the large reserves and company. Oh my God, we have so many different insurance and premium Korean hospitality and that right on stage. So I think there are a number of those you can read. Obviously, one among the top 50 alumnus of Christ University represents the new generation of Indian entrepreneurs driving digital transformation, operational excellence, sustainable business practices across manufacturing, hospitality, and business. So I think you're kind of a multidisciplinary, all-in-one type person. So should I introduce the next panel later once you finish? So I think because the next will be panel 4. So at this time, I'll request hand it over to you to continue with the panel. How much time do you have, Sandeep? About 40 minutes. Yeah.
45 minutes.
45 minutes. Yeah. Go ahead, please. You want to share some slides? No, I can sit there. Oh, but do we have a? We have. Right. That's what we have. That's working there.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm running over an hour late, so we need to move a bit faster now. We have 3 speakers that we invite all the panelists to come up on the stage. Ravi and Manu. The first of the first 2 panels is more about business skills for entrepreneurship, including investment, infrastructure, and leadership. Then we come to the broader ecosystem issues. So, if we can get the panel title on the slides, that would be great. So, first of all, title slide of the panel. There is one. Okay, so first of all, thanks to the IEEE for organizing this very important event. In my previous conversations with the IEEE team, it was emphasized that the IEEE wants its engineers not just to do engineering, but also look at the broader issues of business, policy, and society. So that's a very good start with these kinds of sessions in Bangalore. Thanks also to IEEE Bangalore for hosting this event in their superb campus here. I fondly recall many decades ago going to the first campus of IEEE in Whitefield, when there were just a few rooms on 1 floor in ITBN. Now they got a monstrous campus over here, which is a very good sign of growth. Thanks to the audience. I believe we have some researchers and entrepreneurs in the audience. Any entrepreneurs in the audience? Raise your hands. Any researchers? I know there's some of you who are fantastic. Great. So this panel will be very useful for all of you. Quick remarks to set the stage for this panel. How many of you have read the Global Startup Ecosystem Report, which was released 3 weeks ago? The Global Startup Ecosystem Report. It's a fantastic report on the status of entrepreneurship ecosystems around the world. It ranks where different cities are in terms of being the best startup hubs in the world. Where does Bangalore fit in the list? Any ideas? There's about 40 countries listed over there. 40 cities, sorry. Where does Bangalore fit? Any guesses? What is Bangalore's rank in the world as a startup ecosystem hub? It's now at number, sorry? Take a number, very good, yes. We are at number 15 right now. The aim is to crack into the top 10. So the top few are the usual suspects, Silicon Valley, New York and all that stuff. A bit later on comes, I think at number 13 is Paris and Toronto, both tied at 13 just before us. So 13 and 14 is Paris and Toronto, and then is Bangalore. Later on come other cities like Montreal and 19 and so on and so forth. So good news, Bangalore is in the top 15 now, but we want to break into the top 10, and hopefully conferences, panels like this will help all of you get that extremely that buzz in your nervous system to move us into the top 10 as suggested. So in this panel, we're going to talk about what are some of the issues in technology leadership, what's happening with AI infrastructure, what's happening with the investment landscape, and some real life lessons from on the ground entrepreneur. Our first speaker actually has a very hard stop. He has to leave in 15 minutes, so I'm going to ask him to begin in 20 minutes. So I want to ask Ravi, who's one of the ace venture capital players in Bangalore, in India, actually, also a Bangalore charter member, which is how I know him. I want to ask him to set the stage by talking about how, so far we talked about technology and business, and one of the slides earlier on mentioned, be wary of VCs. I think you mentioned that, which is a very good point, which is you need to understand exactly what VCs can do for you. Don't think they are a magic wand and you got a good idea. They say, yeah, here's $1 million, go ahead and do it. It's not as easy as that. So Ravi is going to talk all of you through the journey of what it takes to be a fundraising entrepreneur, what are some trends happening in India, and what are some tips for success for entrepreneurs. So big round of applause please for Ravi.
Actually, we should try and make this more interactive. Otherwise, post lunch session will roll off. Quickly, I think I'll make two points. I'll set the context of how long I've been doing this, which will kind of help us go through. I will try and do the first few minutes of what I consider as phase 1 and what I consider as phase 2, and this is what we see happening as phase 3. And this is the reason I will set that context. I will address Dilip's question on the VC if I can during phase 2 or phase 3. So why do I think I'm okay to talk about this, or why do I think why am I splitting this into three phases, and I'll try to keep this as short as possible. I became an entrepreneur in 1994, right? And the reason I'm making that as a year is I'm probably older than what I intended to be. But in 94, when I started my first startup, we had no VC community at all. In fact, some of the people that we know early VC at that stage. We started what eventually became, was there an opportunity to exit? Actually, there was. Our first exit was into Oracle. So if you've heard of Oracle SSI, that's what I started. So I would probably classify the late 90s to about 2005 as phase 1 of entrepreneurship, and I'll tell you why. That became, and then 2005 to about 2015 as the second one, and now as we start seeing, we just passed what I call as the phase 3. So the first phase of when I started entrepreneurship, the easiest and the cleanest way to get it was get into services business, right? And why was it very important? So it's not just me. I know lots of people around here. In fact, I know some of the people who help create IEEE come from that kind of a background. Why was that easy to work in? Is simply because you did not have to go in and work off third-party standards of businesses, right? I've been involved with IEEE over the periods. In fact, I'm part of an advisory board for Cola, which is an IEEE initiative across the world on the AI usage. So I call the first phase as where we were establishing service business that didn't need funding. Right? So it's a very important piece for you to understand. Why did it not need funding? Is that in a services business, you need working capital, typically about 3 months worth of working capital. You build a team, they go provide their services, and they get paid for it. You get paid, you work for month 1, you invoice in month 2, and you get paid in month 3. Right? That's a typical 90-day cycle, and that worked fine. So I will go to the extent of saying most of the IT services companies that you see, most of the service businesses that you see come from that kind of structure. You see large manufacturing takeoffs at that point. You see large external services like, let's say, healthcare, anything of that kind. No. In fact, the earliest telecom piece would come from ID Chennai, so I will give you the background. Where I set up my first startup, the next door building was Tenet. Right? And for those who don't know Tenet had WLL wireless loop, and we were kind of trying to work through with that particular technology and trying to make that. What did it do? It did two things. One, it made you visible across multiple geographies, and you then could go and sell beyond your resume. Right? So that was the first thing that it let you do. When I say let you do, let us entrepreneurs go and set up something, because it let us create a base where we would sell beyond a resume, we would sell beyond an IP, we would sell beyond a particular standard. And it is important for you to understand that in India, I think one of the problems that we have had is that we are not standard setters. We try and work our way through, and by the time we get to a structure where we are at the table setting standards and being through, we fall behind. The next phase, once we had the services piece, the next phase we had actually the consumer business taking off. It needed funding, right? Again, why do I say I think I can talk about this? Is in 2003, 2004, I was running Oracle's global division. Came out to start Erasmus, which was an incubation center for startups in India. And if you've heard of people like Newware, if you've heard of Music, these are the ones that they incubate, right? So we started something called Erasmus, which is supposed to be an incubation center. That was also very early VC. In fact, what we started as Erasmus is today Axel Venture Partners. So what you hear as the early creators of VC community is what we started. What changed? Two things changed. One, that was the time when we started receiving foreign money to come into India to invest. Please understand, and then other than ICICI had a jump start VC, and then the DC kind of a division, and then you had states like Kionics trying to create that. Outside of that, our early 2000 to about 2012, 2013, the VC structure has not been funded with domestic capital. And then this is something that we don't appreciate as much, people take it for granted, but it's important for us to understand. Two things change. When you're looking of international capital, when you're not looking of domestic capital, then you do have exit pressures, you do have high growth pressures, and you do have a situation where what they are investing for is growth and not for longevity or for any other kind of structure. So they do not have the patience level for you to be able to go back and say, I'm going to establish something from scratch or to create something from scratch. I'm calling that as phase two. And this phase two actually put a lot of money. So everything from a Flipkart to all the consumer pieces that you see, including other areas that you may not be aware, right? So if you go and look at the healthcare, you will see most of the investment going into healthcare in that period of time. All of those pieces. So whether it's a Manipal, whether it is Narayana area, whether it is any of the other healthcare. So you talk about education, most of that happened during that particular phase. So two things happened. One, capital started getting easier to manage. But then in most cases, because it was not local capital or it was not domestic capital, you had essentially technocrats trying to run capital that was being detected by out of the country, right? And all of us have been through this. Are there exceptions? There are, and the only piece that you will hear is that those exceptions where you did investments, Most of them are not in India or they have domiciled out. And I'll give you examples because you may think that I'm making this up. One of the largest one of the earliest unicorns in that is something called Dhruva, which did not the Dhruva aerospace, but Dhruva was storage space. Domiciled out, went into the US. I'm an investor on Dhruva. I was an investor. I'm still an investor on Uni4, which domiciled out again. IIT Chennai incubation. You've heard of Uni4. They are now one of the largest guys in AI. Domiciled out, now a US company. So that means the second phase of 10 years is actually where we started to see domestic, foreign capital coming, domestic capital starting to raise, but more importantly, we were still following through a transition from trying to be a patient capital kind of a structure. In the last 10 years, I think there's been significant changes. If you ask me what are the 3 or 4 significant changes, government money has started flowing in, right? Whether it's a SIDBI, I don't know how many of you are aware of the RDIF fund, which is the 10,000 crore fund that is getting deployed. The TDB kind of a structure, I'm sure you would have heard of this. The incubation centers, all from, right from IIT Chennai, IITB, all the way across all of the institutes. The innovation hubs, you spoke about Reliance Gen Next, I think 2014, 2015 is when they actually started running that particular process. So these are the ones that I think in the last decade we have had a season, is a fundamental shift in how things have progressed. And we are, if you ask me, today is actually a very, very important day because we have Skyroad, which is the first launch of a private, essentially we have the competition to the equivalent of a star competition to ISRO, right? We have our first launch of a satellite, launch vehicle. That is a significant change in the last, I would say last decade, but more importantly, that is a pace of change that we are going to see. So the next decade actually is going to be fundamentally different in my opinion. Again, for 2-3 things that are coming together. One, the capital is coming together. We now have upwards of about $2.5 billion that is going to be spent in the next 6 or 7 years. Now, why do I tell you that there's a 6 or 7 years? Is that typically a VC cycle is about 8-10 year cycle, which means that we have to collect money from other investors, we have to invest, we have to make that money grow, we have to get an exit and give exit to our investors in about 8 to 10 years cycle. Which means that as soon as we manage to get money, we have to deploy as quickly as possible because the money has to grow and it takes time, it takes time to mature. So you have about 5 years to make it grow. And you have another 2 years to figure out what the exit path is. And which means you're splitting that into 2 plus 5 plus another 2 or 3, and that's your life cycle. So as I said, there are 2 things that are changing. A lot of that capital now, a significant amount is in India. It's coming from India, which means that we can actually structure more patient capital, right? Which allows you to do technological advances that are slightly up. It's a different matter that that cycle itself is getting bigger. Your technology cycle itself is getting to be under 5 years, it's getting to be 2-3 years. But yeah, when you get to something like a 60, I'm sure you will start to see some of that. The second piece, 20 more seconds again. Yeah, the second piece is that the entrepreneurs themselves are getting more mature. We are now actually seeing multi-dimensional entrepreneurs. When I say multi-dimensional, it's cross application services, cross departments and cross things, which is very, very unique, right? We have not had that. And I'll give you examples, right? All of us do these technology courses. Not a single one of the people who have come out on private Indian institutes, unfortunately, can stand up and present a balance sheet or a P&L, right? And you need some of these cross-functional pieces before you can go back and actually talk about maturity. I think that is happening. And the third, which is the last piece, is that all of this needs success. In the last decade, we are starting to see those exits. And exit is a very, very important part of success of our entrepreneurship cycle. Right? The first 15 years, you would not have seen any exits at all. But of late, the last 6-8 years, we are starting to see exits. So in that sense, I'm very, very optimistic. I think we are in a great phase, and I don't think it's going to take too much time to get from the 15 that we are into the top 10. Two bits, we still have to take those audacious leaps that we have to. But there's more acceptance of failure, I think, which is why I'm very, very optimistic. I see a lot more people willing to try and fail than I used to see them.
Fantastic. Any questions? Before he leaves, he's got just a few minutes to leave. My quick question for you would be what?
I have another point.
So good. 10 quick tips for the audience, 3 tips for anybody who's in the entrepreneur. How should they assess that plan? Who should they be? How do they become investor ready? What interests an investor?
Sure. So first and foremost, ask money when you're ready to provide an exit, right? And I'm making this as hard as possible. I've done 3 startups. Actually, I've done more than 3 startups, but 3 startups that have worked. First one, 0 external funding. Second one, 0 external funding. Third one, again, some bit of friends and family funding. Didn't go in too much, but I had to kind of make it work because I had taken money from people that I knew. So I was forced to kind of make it work, give it a soft landing before I would say, no, I'm giving up. The fourth one, I ran it for something that had an external funding, had to get to a safe landing. So first and foremost, you have to realize that if you are looking to build something, be very clear what money you're asking for and what time frame. Because if there is a VC, an investor coming in, the investor is thinking very simply, this is my entry, this is my exit. They are not there to put a chart and say, I know this area or I know I can figure this out. They're not taking a higher stake because they don't want to run that operation. What they are doing is, how do I make this work and how do I go back as a winner to our investors, which are LPs. So be very clear with what you want to do after you take the money. 2, be very clear how you're going to get them an exit. 3, take only money when you need that money as far as possible. Don't take money unless you're looking for growth, because then you're too early and you kind of figure out that you have no way to exit. And more importantly, if you do decide to take money, spend time, meet 15 VCs before you figure out which one is the best for you. Because just like the VC does a due diligence on you, you should be doing a due diligence on the VC to say, are they in this space? Can they really add value? And they're worth it. And it's a relationship, right? You are going to get married, so you might as well spend time doing the dating and the due diligence.
So Ravi, you may leave that anytime you wish.
Ready for questions?
He's got your questions, yes. Yeah.
Not questions, just adding up with my experience. So I'm still very younger compared to most of you guys here. But what I did is, back in, I think 4 or 5 years ago, I did invest in small startups. One was for paid services, and one more was for but more they were doing extracurricular activities. Sure. So I only invested money, trusted them to run it, the startup founder and all. And as I saw that was always money that we invested, right? So the founders were not closed. That's another story about it, and money there. But what I learned out of it is, so we have to get more involved in the running of the business and not just listen to the founders and the numbers. So that's how the Lifter started. So Lifter is a gym brand we started about 4 years ago. And I became a co-founder. So money also I invested, but got into the day-to-day job. So now what's happened is we work that, and no money is raised today. No extra money is raised. It's only friends and family who are raised. And we were able to, because as you said, like that pressure, when you raise money from friends and family, you have to make it work. Today, because of that, we're okay. But now we are approaching VCs. So now we know what kind of questions and what are the kind of questions that I have to ask and I'm interested. But now we know, and VCs also, like, we have been touch with many of them, and it's very different. So each VC as you mentioned, each one is looking at a different out. So when we approach VC, we should also be very clear as to, as you mentioned, what is it that we want, what is it we want to do with the money, and how is their exit. I think the most important for them is exit. Like how much money they put, how much exits they're going to get in what time.
Sure.
So this is something which I like over a bit of experience I've learned of the last 5 years.
Very nice one. We come back to this one.
I just want to shift it, right? So I differ a little, right? So okay, then that means that the girl investments I had to work with everybody, which is again not possible. So I'll give a small analogy, and then we can probably discuss more things. The simple example I can give you, right? That when you're looking for investments from an investor, don't expect them. So example is if you want to drive a car, right? Don't expect them to buy you a car, teach you how to drive, right? And then give you money, for the petrol also. What you need to do is you need to learn the car, you need to own the car, and you need to know where to go. They will only give you the money for the petrol. If you don't have clarity, then you are screwed, and then you are also wasting the money and the effort of the investors. I think this is as simple as I can put it. But this is something which needs to be tested from the whoever is raising that money. And the investors, if there are investors who are coming in and say that we would like to run it, then this marriage is up for divorce. I can tell you that. You need to run your show yourself, and you need to be confident there.
Very good. All hard lessons. Thanks so much. Amit, let's come to your background is perfectly aligned to the whole theme of this conference. Yeah, sure. We could have applause please for everybody before he goes, and we need to give him a bottle of champagne.
What is the
Yeah, so it's all imaginary. It's all into virtual.
That means that don't work.
Apologies, I have to be another.
No, it's thanks. Yeah. Okay, good. So our next speaker is perfectly suited for the theme of this conference. He's got a background in telecom. He's also got a background in data infrastructure and in AI to make new thing of the future. So tell us a bit about what's happening in this whole space of AI infrastructure, especially for the researchers in this space and the entrepreneurs who want to get into it. What's happening? What do people need to know before they get into it? And what's below all that?
Sure. So I'll share some numbers. I think ingenious numbers, right? So I'll talk about some numbers. So India is sitting at a entire capacity, data center capacity of about 4 gigawatt, right, as of now, which will grow to at least 12 gigawatt by 2030 to 2032. Every megawatt right now, it's AI, costs me $10 billion. Right, so we're looking at $100 billion getting invested in the frame of next 5 to 7 years. In the history of the country, nobody has ever seen this kind of money getting pumped in any industry possible, including telecom, right, which was the largest. No one, not mining. So there's a lot of money getting invested in infra in the country. And if you look at the parallel ecosystems, if you look at Middle East or Southeast Asia, collectively they're still smaller than India. Right? So imagine the capacity which is going to get built in the country. This allows us to look at investments and opportunities to build companies who are in the peripheral businesses for data centers. So it could be cooling, cable, chips, right? You name it. Energy going to be a big one there, right? And energy saving, whatever you can do from the energy saving point of view. I think that those are and that's where I'm also spending a lot of my time. I think that's going to be a big play where we will. The third point which I want to make, and we will be, Mother and I have been discussing a lot. I think this is the time of building moonshots for all of us, because for a lot of researchers, the challenge was I don't have access to labs, right? I don't have access to things, Now with AI and with GPUs and QPUs, quantum processing coming in, we will be able to do a lot of simulation, right? So you will be able to actually validate a lot of hypotheses which we had in every industry possible. I'm closely working with companies who are building LLMs for material sciences, LLM for neural sciences. And these are the kind of foundation models which needs to be come out. There's a lot of work which is happening in AI across the board. And yesterday I was talking to a lot of academia, right? So we hosted an event, and the request which I made to them, and I want to request all of you is, don't allow our Indian mental baggage to stop us from doing what we can do, right? We have enough and more promising Indians doing enough work there, but they are them sitting in US or wherever they are, sitting in India. There's much more which we can do. There's enough demand in our internal ecosystem. There is enough and more demand which is out there, which we can supply to people who don't like our neighbor, right? And people don't like the self-appointed monitor of the world, right? So there's this opportunity for us to become not only the service destination. I think that this is right now the time is right to do something with the hardware and peripherals and give these opportunities to the world, right? And these are the products which are relevant. The last point which I want to make, and because we're sitting in Bangalore, this is the only city in the country where you have access to any kind of skills out there. Right? Not because we were building it in India, because we were servicing the world. Right? Now that's a good skill set, that's a good talent, that's a lot of wisdom out there within like the 60-kilometer peripheral, where my is actually. How can we tap into that? And how can we leverage all that skill set which is working for the other markets and get them to work with us and for us, right? And we work with them. And I think that's a larger conversation a larger dialogue which IEEE should also have, collectively the ecosystem should have. But I am very, very bullish about what we can do in the next 5 years from an Indian standpoint, especially with this ecosystem.
Fantastic. Questions for Amit? Questions about AI infrastructure and so on. It's a very good time to engage with some of the best minds in the field. So, especially all you researchers, etc., it's a good time to ask him some questions. Others, I would ask you one on what's a good time horizon plan on this stuff? Is 5 what should happen in the next 5 years? Should companies be thinking? But 5, 10, 15 years, how long a horizon should companies be thinking?
I think 5 months. things are moving too fast, right? If you look at from January till date, right? It was ChatGPT, then Gemini, and then Claude, right? And then yesterday there was a Chinese model which got launched, and I think the benchmark was set different and different. I don't see India in there. You talked about Bangalore being, the 15 number. I don't see in the top 15 an Indian LLM model, which means that we are doing something fun, honestly wrong. There is something which we are not looking at. And we should stop thinking about what we can look at from India, look at from the world, because I think there is enough more talent here to do that. And there's enough more talent sitting out there in other parts of the country. So how can we leverage that? So language could be one big angle. There are companies who are using language to work with farmers who cannot type. They're trouble typing or use apps. But they can do voice notes, they can talk using their own language, right? So there are people in Maharashtra, they're talking to the app in Marathi, learning in Marathi, all this is happening. And so and because of all this text-to-speech and speech-to-text apps, we might be able to save some of the languages which are considered lost, right? Because there was no written language, right? So a lot of these spoken languages we probably will be able to save. A lot of work which is happening in the energy space because we don't have access to a lot of energy. In every part of the country, we have certain states we have more in their energy dependence, but not enough to have a data center, let's say, a gigawatt or something. Right? So and I think water is going to be a big. So how can we look at all these problem statements? And these are, if you keep looking at it, right? I'm an arts graduate. Right? Went to Harvard to understand this, but I'm an arts graduate. I am talking to ISCs, folks in ISC, I'm talking to folks and there's a lot of work which is happening. And to what Ravi was telling about, I think, teaching PNL to engineers, I think you need to also teach them how to sell. Because there are great products, and I feel very bad those attempts of 4 years, 5 years get wasted because they don't know how to pitch or make it simple. Because not everybody who's going to buy from you is a techie. Right? So how do we simplify, right? And that's something which I'm trying to do, but we need a village to do that. Right? So there's a lot of work that should happen. And it should start from somewhere. Let's not wait for everybody else, right? Or the government to tell us, or a government grant to give us, right? So I think it should start. And I'm very hopeful that we will be able to do something together.
That's a great takeaway from these remarks, which is you need tech and business and finance and arts and other business to come together. Another question here? Yes.
So, I just ask you because people are into this. So I think I was reading an article somewhere that think the use cases. So if you have interesting use cases, then you can harness AI better than anything else, right? And the article is actually the research from the ex-Prime Minister of British, UK. He has written an article that he said he was studying India has some interesting use cases, and that will drive the innovation, evolution of AI in India faster than anywhere else. It was a very short article, and he was trying to justify that. So I want to hear what you think about it. I mean, it is true. Statements of facts. India is a lot of diversity, a lot of interesting use cases, a lot of languages. So if you really work hard, we can really harness AI better than anywhere else in the world. What do you think?
I think that's a interesting question, but it boils down to our basic understanding on how and where we are, right? As individuals also. Right? I keep telling this, and this is a reality for all of us. I'm not sure how many of you will relate, but Indians, we are born with 2 hands, 2 legs, and a huge imposter syndrome sitting here. Right? So all of us have that imposter syndrome. Now we never think that we are enough, and then the PCs question you: do you have something similar in US? Right? That they are imposter syndrome kicking in. Right? So we don't trust that India will produce a certain set of products or companies, which is why Indian use cases get the bottom, they don't get solved. AI may be able to solve it, that I don't need to build it, I can show it to you, that this is how it will look. Ashutosh, do you like to invest? Right? I think that will probably reduce my time frame, and especially in deep research, which probably would take me 6 years to build a battery. I can simulate and give you alternatives that, if I use an X material, this is the result, and I use a Y material, this will be the result. I will not take 6 years. So I think that probably some of these use cases will be interesting. But then if I go to the other side of the spectrum, I also believe that not everybody needs AI. And I'll tell you why. We were discussing this earlier. I think with $1.4 billion people, we need enough and more people who need things. A simple example, if you look at it, if I reduce 50% of engineers in Bangalore, then the economy will go down because people will not have money. So I'm not ordering from LinkedIn. So the LinkedIn driver who's making 50,000-60,000 rupees is not making his money. So he's going back and he does not know how to farm. And the ecosystem there is also dependent on him because he was sending money to his parents. Right? So if you start looking at this, and this is the conscious level we need to start talking about. If we start looking at this as a value chain, then we need to have these gaps and guardrails and say that, okay, AI or quantum or whatever come next should be for certain things. And then this was the same question the professor asked. How do we guardrail it? I don't know. Because this professor actually, she asked me that is there a place where I can go and say that what should I use AI for? And what should I not use AI for? That needs to be solved by an AI. So it's a vicious cycle itself. I need to talk to an AI to help me solve it. So right, but I think there is a lot of interesting use cases which will be solved. But we need to be a little conscious on how and where we are going to use it.
Great. Just to last panelist now, Manu, he's not just a serial entrepreneur, he's a parallel entrepreneur. He's running some 5 to 10 companies at the same time. So tell us a little bit, share some of your tips with the audience on what does it take to run a tech company, to run a portfolio of companies, not just a portfolio of products.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity to the organization. And I'd just like to add up one more thing with what Sir was mentioning. The thing is, AI, as you mentioned, data centers. So my core company is manufacturing of electrical insulators. So basically, we supply insulators to the electrical industry. And right now, we are seeing the growth in the electrical industry. So we have companies in Bangalore, Dubai, and Saudi. So all three places, our entire capacity is being taken over by Siemens, Schneider, all of these companies who are supplying to data centers. And the volumes in the last couple of years have gone up, couple of months have gone up so much that there is so much of scope. Like we set up another 4-5 units we cannot supply. So today, if you guys can get into the manufacturing sector to support data centers, it is mad. Because where the MEP contractors, so we have a division where we do MEP contracting. Each order is 1,500, 2,000 crores, 3,000 crores. And they want this in a 6 months or a 1 year turnaround. So, if anyone wants to get into manufacturing, anything related to data centers, this is the right time. And as he was mentioning, there's no couple of years, it's months. Like data centers right now is insanely crazy. Cooling is one place where people are working on because it takes immense amount of energy. Power, yes, because now they're using, I read somewhere, they're trying to experiment with rocket engines to ensure that the generators come back up soon. So much of research is happening. Because data centers are growing, Mumbai, Visakhapatnam, any coastal regions basically. Mumbai, Visakhapatnam, Vijayawada, all these places, orders are mad. Okay, so anyone wants to get into manufacturing, something related to electrical or cooling or even the data racks. Even the data racks, which is very simple, someone gets into that. That also, there's a company called Yoga here in Android City. This place. So that company also makes data racks. They are fully loaded. They're expanding left right. So data centers is something you guys can look into. Any solution to data centers will take this a long. Okay, so that's just.
That's a very good insight, which is that this whole data centers wave has a lot of side effects, which we'll talk about in the next panel. But there are also other waves in the rising because of the data center. Can you share a couple of management lessons, leadership lessons, because we have to tech a lot.
Okay, so my background, basically, I did my management BPM from scratch, but we run a very hardcore electrical and chemical industry. So we have no experience. So all this experience, when I was younger, I used to go to my factory with dad, and then he used to teach all of this. And then that's how, having a self-interest in learning, that is the most important thing for an audience. You have to learn, you have to know things, basic things you have to know, like how they mentioned, like the balance sheet. So when I joined, the basic thing was I was taught was all go to the shop floor, run the machine, pack this, do that, and all the basic stuff like accounting, credit, debit. I still get confused very little, and preparing the balance sheets, how to read the balance sheets. So even today, like being the top management and running almost 12 companies, the finances is very important. So if someone doesn't know it and you will listen to your auditors, then they can, you will end up having big problems because they will tell you this is what to do and then you will end up doing what they do. And then, but you have to know the basics of accounting. And second thing I would say is purchasing. Like purchase and accounts is what we say is the heart of any manufacturing sector, not the other sectors. So manufacturing sector, purchasing and accounts, you have to know if you want to become an entrepreneur in this sector. Because without which it will be very difficult as you grow. And most important, if you when I tell you that I run 11 12 companies, it is people management. We have to know how to manage people because all of these divisions spread across multiple places in multiple countries is running because the people there are the ones who are on the floor, day-to-day activities they run. So the most important skill that we need to have multiple businesses, or even basic to have one business is people skill. If you can realize what they want and provide them with what they want and take care of them, then as you grow, as they grow, the company also grow. So that I would say the most important skill today is people skill. But unfortunately with AI, it's becoming very difficult. Because most of the people today, the younger, because my core team has been with me for many, many years, but the current teams that are hiring across all the divisions and all the industries, everything is AI, including the series AI. So you ask them, like a lot of engineers, we have asked engineering companies, right? We get engineers to come, we give them a basic scale, and then we ask them how many inches, how many centimeters, or give them a vernier and a component. They don't know how to use it. That's becoming the biggest part of it. Because everything, or most of the people are getting out of colleges and schools based on AI. This is a problem. We are practically facing, like not only in India, across the other countries where they are factories also, we are facing this issue. So AI, as I said, we should have somewhere a division which says, okay, this is for AI and this is not for AI.
This is for humans. Thanks for putting the focus on humans back. And with that, we must end this fantastic panel. We started at 3:05.
I was about to comment, you have like a parallel between your so many use cases, so you can be apply AI more than everybody else, right?
Yeah, that's true. Good, great, excellent. Organizations to give the mentors to.
So we are going to be doing
I'll give this one. Round of applause please for Amit. Amit, Mr. Don't plan for the next 5 years, plan for the next 5 months.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amit. And now, Manu, business genius. Thanks, I like that. We got a call team, so Manu, sales entrepreneur, plan entrepreneur, and bring the focus back on human beings in the age of AI. Thanks. So with that, we come to the end of our module number 3, which was on way from technology to business skills. Let's move on to our next panel, module number 4.
Yeah, so again, I do the same thing. I introduce the candidates and then I introduce Dr. Rakhi. So the first panelist here, Gaurav Pare, product leader team, turned systems thinker, and I was talking to him. He has several outlets in his past life. Obviously, he's a leader, he's a system thinker, also an entrepreneur. And he has worked at the intersection of artificial intelligence and human consciousness. Over the course of his career, he has experienced both ends of the spectrum, being part of early stage startup journey and later having scaled to market leadership as part of Cisco following this acquisition. And he is also known for building high-performing teams, cultures rooted in the trust, empowerment, and shared purpose. As the founding partner of the Rasmi AI Common Ventures Group, Gaurav is focused on enhancing a new paradigm for AI area, unlocking the real human wisdom. And as the defining human differentiator in the world of university power, he believes that the future will not be set by artificial intelligence alone, but by consciously humans integrating intelligence across mind. He is the founding chairperson of C6, Council for Entrepreneurship and Decarbonization Sustainability Model Stakeholder Initiative. I think we should just bring him off. Where is so let's go with the next speaker, panelist, Sridhar Kishore, who is the director of SPG. And a brief introduction. Development, sustainability, and climate change professionals with experience. Mr. Srilata has also held the customer service of leading hospitality and telecom brands before co-founding our own online enterprise, SCRT, in 2005. Srilata has worked in diverse set of national and international organizations in the fields of sustainability, communication, social impact. Before joining the School of Policy and Governance, she was consulting with Mumitra, short price 2023 minus 6. Our climate was interesting as community climate and biodiversity expert retired early in India in 2023. She was in Aberdeen, Scotland, where she had the opportunity to work with the circular economics projects, construction sector, develop sustainability strategy roadmaps for the construction sector, and research the bodies like North East Scotland Climate Action Network, just visited Scotland in this man. She's also the only Indian in the executive advisory board of first infra level, one of the first globally applicable labeling system designed to evaluate the sustainability and resilience performance. So the CPD certified green champion and CSL professional. Let's welcome the last panelist for this panel, Prashant Jonathan. He's manager for panel. Later, you are not joining us. Okay, all right. So I think you have two panelists and Dr. Rao.
Yeah.
Three of you.
Okay, good. So we got half an hour for this panel. We're going to shift gears from the previous one, which talked about the trickle-down effect of AI, more into maybe the side effects of AI. So this panel is going to talk more about some of the unintended consequences of getting into this whole tech space, etc. And we have two outstanding speakers here, and thanks to you especially for adding some gender balance in this discussion of AI. Thanks. So I'm going to begin with Gaurav. Gaurav obviously has a very interesting background. As you saw in his bio, started off in the hardcore tech sector with companies like Cisco and so on. Now he's branching out into conscious entrepreneurship, issues of the broader ecosystem of AI and so on. And one of the initiatives he's spearheading is called Green Intelligence. So I'm going to ask Gaurav to tell us a bit about what Green Intelligence means, what do we all need to do to get on board the agenda, and how to increase ecosystem engagement in this space. Gaurav, big round of applause please for Gaurav.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I have had a very long career in tech. I started my career at CDOT here in Bangalore, and then I was in Motorola startups, Cisco. And so I have been in networks, so being affiliated with IEEE, Future Networks, and being here for Future Networks, empowerment through mentorship, that is very close to my heart. Now I am focused on in the age of AI, I'm focused on real human wisdom and how do humans lead AI, and then I really believe entrepreneurship is the way forward. I think in the last panel, Amit raised some very interesting points about that with AI, okay, as you automate more and more, and humans start losing jobs, what's going to happen? Entrepreneurship and local entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is the way forward. And that is why we have launched concept for entrepreneurship, decarbonization, and sustainability. So before I get to green intelligence and what is green intelligence, since we are in a networks setting, I will actually set what I am saying in the context of networks. There is kind of different stages of networks. I started, and my career is a great example. I started building technology networks, whether it was a CDOT, Motorola, startup, Cisco. I built tech networks where we used technology to build networks. And that's basically the hardware infrastructure and all that. And that enabled internet, which enabled knowledge networks. Companies like Google, etc., where knowledge became a commodity. Beyond that, we built social networks. And we got Facebook, Twitter, and all that. Everybody spends their entire time on social networks now. And all of this have been amazing innovations. It's great. And now AI is about to enter into the fray, and we are building networks for AI, which is what the previous panel was talking about. Data centers are going to be everywhere. So these past three eras of the various networks, we built them with effectively one objective of the overarching objective of everything has been how do we grow money, and eventually money, and we were having this conversation in lunch. Money is actually a great invention that we human beings have come up with. It allows us to collaborate to in large number of
is one of the best inventions we've come up with. However, it is an invention. There is no money in the real world. And it is an invention that should allow us to do things that we genuinely care for in the real world. So far we've built these 3 generations of networks with the idea of growing money. And that's great, it has led to amazing innovation. And at the same time, it has also led to attention economy, what we got with social media. And when I look back at my career, I got into communication networking because I was very passionate about connecting human beings. The end result is we are actually disconnected human beings. People sit in the same room and they are with their phones. So if we continue to be run by money, we will actually get attachment economy with AI, where everybody will be attached to their AI chatbots more than they will be attached to other human beings. And I think this is the time. That's why everything that I'm doing right now in terms of the Rashmi.ai, our Council for Entrepreneurship, Decarbonization, Sustainability, it is about building purpose networks. So start with a purpose first. And it will enable local entrepreneurship centered around purpose. And that change will require a change in individual human mindset. It will require a change at organizational level on how organizations approach this, as well as it will require a change at the ecosystem level. And the ecosystem change, so now I'll come to green intelligence. That is what is green intelligence. Green intelligence is our tagline for Council for Entrepreneurship Development, Decarbonization and Sustainability. We just launched a podcast. The first episode we recorded last week. So it's available on all your podcast platforms. The idea is in the age of AI. So with AI, solving any problem is very easy. AI can give you all the tools to solve whatever you need to solve. However, the really important question in AI is what are the problems worth solving? What do you truly care for solving? And that is, if you start with the purpose-based center, then that's the question green intelligence movement will help you answer. And the way the idea of seeds and green intelligence kind of came about, I know a lot of founders. Every founder starts with a vision of that they want to change the world. They are very purpose-oriented. Then they get a VC, they get an investor, and then money becomes, return on investment becomes the main thing. And that point was discussed earlier, the marriage between VCs and founders is very important. At the same time, I know a lot of VCs, I know a lot of investors, they all want to invest in purpose-driven innovation. By themselves, they all want to do the right thing. People blame the government, people blame the bureaucrats. I have friends who are bureaucrats high up at various levels. They are all great people, they all want to do the right thing. However, and similarly, then people say universities are not producing the right type of talent to do purpose-driven innovation. All the academicians I know want to do the right thing. However, left in silos, they don't necessarily do this. They all are incented to operate in their own little silos. So at Seeds, we are trying to build that ecosystem of universities, founders, funders, big ecosystem players, regulators, and get them together behind green intelligence to really build purpose networks of the future.
Very nice, Gordon. Thanks for connecting purpose and platform, purpose of why we're here in this world with a platform to actually connect people and so on. Any questions for Gordon before we go to Srilata first? Questions together. So Srilata runs the School for Public Governance, a very important initiative to connect techies, business people, etc., to the broader picture of governance, of policy in society. So can you run us through your journey, how important ESG is today in the context of our discussion here about technology networks and some of your activities in this space with respect to challenges and so on? Yes. Round of applause please for Srilata.
Thank you for having me here. Special thanks to IEEE and IIT Bangalore for hosting this wonderful event. I think we need to have more of these forums. So to begin with, I head the School of Policy and Governance. We work at the intersection of leadership, climate change and public policy. Quite an interesting combination. So just to segue into the question straight away, Why is ESG important today? In the ancient times, I think we led, at least in India, we know we have a history of leading a very balanced life. We respected nature, we worshipped nature, we lived in tandem with nature, and at the same time, we earned our livelihood. But slowly, as we transformed into a more industrialized nation, it became a more extractive economy. Slowly, we transitioned into not caring for the nature purely because we wanted to earn our livelihoods. And like Gaurav was rightly saying, money became really important. Money became one of the main drivers of everyone's life. Everyone wanted to earn more money faster, so that they thought that they could fulfill whatever they wanted to do. But what we have ended up over years of industrialized opening up of the economy, you may call it, livelihoods, tech-enabled, tech-enabled industries, tech-enabled futures. What has happened is we've ended up destroying the very nature which kind of protects and nurtures us. So during the 1960s, 70s is when the ESG dialogue started taking importance, and over the years, in the early 20s, early 2000s, is when ESG framework was actually developed globally. So the ESG framework is very simple to understand. It asks of every company, organization, or a startup, or a founder who's delivering a service or a product, what is your environmental footprint? As in, what are the emissions? What are the negative impacts on the environment? And if there are any positive impacts, what are they? They ask you to declare that. How do you treat your people? Do you have all the safety norms, all the norms under the human rights guidance documents? Do you practice active human rights? Are you violating any human rights? So that is the social part of it. And governance, how compliant are you? So normally when startups, especially because we are looking at a lot of startups in today's program, especially when startups or founders are thinking of a business idea or are thinking of setting up an organization, the moment they think about ESG, the first thing which comes to mind is, oh my goodness, it's going to be a complicated checklist, there's so much of compliance, there's going to be so much of red tapeism, government is going to get involved. I don't want to look at ESG till that end moment. But actually, the ESG framework or the ESG norms that you need to abide by, they are not something that you impose on your company or your startup. It's a tool that you need to build your company with. You need to keep your you need to keep in mind that when I'm developing this particular product or service, what is going to be my environmental impact? Because the moment you start imposing the ESG guidelines on your company, you'll no longer be compliant with it. It's a very simple yes. You're going to be fudging data. You're going to be retrospectively looking at compliance with human rights violations. You may not have taken care of your employees, but at that moment, just to comply, just to tick the box. So a very, very important message that I would like to share with organizations, startups, and founders is: do not treat ESG as something that you can impose on your organization. Use it as a tool and see how easy it is to be compliant with ESG norms. It is nothing which requires rocket science, or it is not complicated. The moment you start looking at ESG guidelines as a tool, from the moment you start building your organizations, it's super easy to be compliant when you become a mature startup and become a mature organization. But some of the things that I have commonly come across when we've interacted with a lot of policymakers, we are a capacity building organization, SPG largely. We do a lot of capacity building programs on climate change, public policy for bureaucrats, for government department heads, for startups, for the Indian Army. We also work with the Indian Defense Forces, and a lot of civil society participants as well. Some of the common challenges that we have come across when it comes to understanding ESG or understanding climate change, especially in current days, they take it as an opportunity. They take competitions, incubators, startup accelerator programs as an opportunity to get more visibility and to get more funding. They don't take it as an opportunity to learn more about climate change and how it connects to your business, to your purpose. Like everyone has been talking, do you have a purpose to why you're building that particular startup? Is it solving a particular problem which has not been solved till today? And even if it has been solved and you're solving a similar problem, does it impact people? Are you measuring what is the impact of your organization's service or product? If you are, and you see that there is positive impact on people, on community, there is positive impact, it connects back to the climate, to being a climate conscious organization, then you're on the right track. So that's some of the things that we have learned as SPG through our journey of mentoring not just individuals and leaders, but startups and organizations as well.
Very nice. Thank you, Nanda, for bringing up these very important issues which we tend to forget often, which is if you look at pollution, if you look at the list of the top 10 most polluted cities in the world, many of them are from India, unfortunately. If you take a look at what are some of the side effects of this whole IT boom, a lot of it is e-waste, which is another whole discussion altogether. So how do we get into circular economy? All of these things are very important. We've got another 15 minutes or so for Q&A from the audience, but first I also want to invite my friend Ken to say a few words about open source. This whole movement of academia, industry, standards, organizations, etc., is built around the open source movement. Okay. A quick Ken, before you get to use that something. Yeah. A few quick thoughts on open source and some of your work in this space, and how open source is a good model to work towards for the tech industry. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me here. I actually moved to Bangalore last year, so still learning more about the city and everything. I work for an organization called IEEE. It's a Finnish-based organization. I'm responsible for the Asia Pacific sales business. I have a background in technology, but I was always interested more on the business side. So I tried to see how technology is solving the business challenges. What the company does is it actually offers a managed services platform for open source technologies. I know we were discussing a lot of the AI models, but these AI models also needs a database in the back. We also need infrastructure. So now imagine all these engineers who have a lot of skills, right? But they're spending a lot of time on actually making sure the infrastructure is up and available. Because today, if you go on a website or if you're chatting with an AI bot or anything, right, you are ordering from Zomato. If Zomato is down or it's not showing you your tracking, it gets very difficult and people now get paranoid or irritated. So ensuring that infrastructure is available, up and running, it's not just an engineering job. Because the engineers are more focused or developers are more focused on building. So having someone who actually take care of that backend infrastructure makes their life easier and allows the organization to move fast. Because like you said, if the VC money is invested, they're expecting ROI. But if you are wasting way too much time on maintaining that infrastructure, ensuring that it's available, then you're already behind in terms of achieving your goals. You want to launch a new product, but your engineering or developers bandwidth is wasted on, oh, is my infrastructure up and running? Do we have issues? I'm sure engineering leaders out there, researchers know when something breaks. First of all, the ROI or the impact, you have to first of all spend too much time identifying, then doing the RCA, and at the end of the day, it's a lot of time wasted. So this is where companies like IEEE comes in, and we have been solving a lot of challenges, especially in the AI space, or any new applications as a matter of fact, right? We have a lot of customers in India who are using the platforms and even globally too. So that's kind of it. And open source is good because there's no licensing cost. So you're not tied in any proprietary format. You can go contribute to the society. There are forums. And new developers and new organizations, when they're starting a business and they don't have the kind of funding which they expect, they start building open source. Because once again, there's no cost to license. It's just the cost to run the software, which anyway you would have to pay.
Great, thanks. So researchers in open source, please contact again afterwards. Thanks.
Yes, we offer funding to startups as well. So if you are bootstrapped, unfortunately we don't have that kind of funding. But if you are pre-seed, seed funding, Series A, Series B, we have started a program which will give you some kind of credits to build your infrastructure, manage it, use open source technologies for different use cases, whether database, data streaming, or analytics on ClickHouse or open search kind of use cases. So we offer all of this kind of ecosystem. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, questions? Yes.
Yeah, just a small but maybe a stupid question. No, I'll take it. So my mention, and this is very correct, that when we see the checklist and document and policy documents guideline, we become really very afraid of that. Who is going to follow this? And but you say that you take it as a tool. So I was thinking, why not that document is named as a tool? Why guideline? If you name this document as a tool, perhaps things might change. Thank you.
That's a good suggestion. But I think it's named as a guideline because it kind of points you the right way in which you should declare your commitments and your compliance. It may not be the way that a particular company kind of wants to declare its. So guidelines is a more generic term. Tool then becomes very specific because if your organization or a startup belongs to a certain sector, the framework for that particular sector might need to look a little different. Similarly, let's say my startup belongs to a agriculture kind of sector. The ESG compliance and the metrics for ESG declaration might look slightly different from a manufacturing kind of. So guidelines, I think, is a more generic this thing. But I think what I mentioned is that in essence, we need to use it as a tool, not look at it like a deterrent or look at it like, a lot of work that we need to do. The moment it becomes a headache, the moment it becomes a chore for you, it means that you are not incorporating those elements of ESG compliance right from day one. You have slapped it now on whatever you are doing. Let's say I'm doing business in a certain way. Now I've not incorporated any ESG metrics into my business. Now suddenly I want to be compliant, ESG compliant. And now I'm looking at the framework and saying, oh, now how can I be compliant? How can I tick this box? I just want to get it out of my way. So that was in essence what I was trying to share. But nonetheless, it's a great suggestion.
I completely forgot about the online question. Are there any questions coming from online? Those of you who are online, please type your questions and there's a immediately questions. Yes. Okay, any other questions? Questions from the back? The smartest people in the world come from the back benches. No offense intended to the front benches.
So
Yeah, what
that's
about-
what's missing.
Sorry,
He asked a question about
Okay,
credit
this finish this already.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one point to what you asked her. That was a great answer. I think right now, and this is what I do at the Rashmi.ai, and it is about what I call integrated intelligence, that humans are capable of far more than logical intellect. AI is logical intellect on steroids. Humans are capable of emotional intelligence and intuitive intelligence as well. So far, our organizations are purely an expression of our logical intellect alone. And many organizations then add a function like chief sustainability officer, chief people officer. They are all subordinate functions to the logical intellect organization. The future is going to be a different organizational model. Humans are going to do human tasks. So sustainability, human elements, these are things only humans can do. Those will be built into an organization. CEO actually can be AI. My title for my company is I'm the Chief Alignment Officer at the Rashmi.ai. I'm not the Chief Executive Officer. My CEO is actually my AI. And that is the future. I have a Chief Art Officer because art intelligence is important. The future is about allowing humans to do human things. Let AI do all these logical intellect things. It is a logical intelligence that is going to be better than humans at logical intelligence.
Ken had a question that increasingly we are hearing about organizations and carbon credits. Is somebody actually measuring their impact? So just to
Yes.
So just to answer your question, Ken, extremely valid question. A lot of what we are now seeing today in front of us is also because I don't think in a country like India we have a dearth of good ideas. We don't have we have excellent solutions. We have excellent policies on paper. But is somebody actually measuring what impact that particular policy has had? Nobody is doing that, and hence, as a nation, we are also not attributing accountability to our leaders. So when you're not seeing this particular policy has had a impact, you don't even know what to question your leaders. You don't even understand the policy because you've not measured the impact. So when you're not measuring impact, you're not seeing the impact or the result of that particular policy, you are no longer able to hold your leaders accountable. So, I mean, this is away from the topic, but SPG has recently launched an initiative called the Zero Prize. All of you are welcome to look it up on zeroprize.com.org. It's a platform we are building. It's an innovation challenge to solve one of the most critical issues in the country, pollution. We're calling on innovations which can reduce air, water, and land pollution. But what is different about this challenge is we are not just inviting applications and shortlisting and awarding a particular solution which looks good. We are going to ask them to demonstrate over a 3-month period. We are going to ask them to demonstrate their solution, and that is a solution that is going to be measured and evaluated by an independent technical panel. So they're going to see what is the impact of that solution in a particular area, in a particular water body, or in a particular piece of land. And if they see that that particular solution has the impact to reduce air, water, or land pollution, only then that verified solution gets shortlisted for the award.
Great. Yeah.
So yes, I mean, very important question. I mean, are we actually measuring impact of our innovations, our solutions, our ideas that we put out today? If we are not, I think we need to start there today, because only the impact, only the outcome will tell you what has happened and what is the roadmap or what is the pathway we need to take. So yeah.
So almost out of time now, because the coffee is getting cold. But we've got some very good comments that are coming in. Here's a very nice one from Fiseha Victoria. Thank you. I believe that India can be the AI for good for the global south. Thank you. This is a challenge for all of us.
I have one question.
Yeah, sure. Let me just one more question over here. Take it. So this question was, how do you find a balance between data energy consumption and the energy demands of the air-given ecosystem? The answer is what our speakers have already mentioned, which is seeds, whichever part, the seeds council and the zero price challenge. Yes.
So when you said compliance guidance, so this is something that I practically faced, because I ran a company which is 35 years old. This is how old I am. My dad started. So when he started, this compliance and all these things didn't exist. So today, because we deal with a lot of MNCs, so it is compulsory that we have compliances for manufacturing and different sectors, right? So what is happening practically is we get these guidances, we give to the team. The team will fix one by one based on the guidelines. The auditing is done. So after that, when the repeat audit comes, is when this again coming back. So is there something which and we don't get any visits from the teams. They just upload the photos, videos, and that's it. So isn't that I watched kind of a thing?
It is.
So that's not correct.
Great question. Out of time, we'll do this. We'll take the answer over the coffee break. Okay. Very good question. Thank you so much. Thanks to the organizers for putting together this superb 2 sets of panels. This is module 3 and module 4, which we just finished. Module 3 was about business skills going beyond technology, and this is going beyond the organization to the ecosystem and an impact on the ecosystem. So thanks to the organizers for conceptualizing these 4-5 modules, and thanks to all the panelists and the audience for taking part in the discussions. We now bring for tea and coffee. Thanks to the online people for staying for the whole day, and just a couple of photo meetings and mementos for our two panelists. Yes. Okay. Round of applause, please, for Sri Lanka. And one for Gaurav now. Yeah. Round of applause, please, for Gaurav Ben. Yes. From the Seed Thanks. Next one, and maybe last one for Ken for joining the
Ken.
discussion.
We need to have an open society love.
Yeah. Ken is going to very generously contribute to the initiative. He's going to contribute to the credits for startup entrepreneurs and researchers. Thank you.
But we have to give it to.
The other panels have gone.
Can you come a bit forward? The light is hitting your
Picture
forehead.
later, just a little bit forward.
Yeah,
Let's
please
take
come forward.
one, individual then.
I will get this.
Okay, thank you. Now, last one is list.
Oh.
Dr. Moderator.
Thank you. Thanks. All of us, yeah.
Alright, so now we get all the panelists.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one group for this list. We can keep all of this.
Lilith, you want to join? Anybody else want to
Yeah,
join?
please come.
Ken,
And
forward, a
next
bit
speaker,
forward.
right?
Getting your
Our next speaker, Joy.
Ma'am, a bit forward. The light.
Matthew. Anybody wants to join?
Just can you come forward?
Yeah.
Yeah.